Welcome to the Heathen Coalition. I'm your host, Dawn. I have a degree in religious studies from the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. I just thought I would do a quick video. Every time I say a quick video, it turns into a month of research, so that is going on behind the scenes. Today's topic is going to be about the ethnofauna of the owl. As you can see, I've been collecting a lot of houseplants. My new favorite flower that I would like to grow is owl clover. The owl is a sacred symbol of Athena, and she had a little fluffkin owl that was always with her. It's due to her folkloric attribute with the owl that it has come to be known as associated with wisdom. We think of the wise owl because of Athena, and it was considered lucky for the little owl to fly over the battlefield was a good omen for the Greek armies. In fact, the little owl species was named Athena Noctua, after the goddess Athena. There's an old phrase, bringing owls to Athens. That means when you're kind of bringing like ice to an igloo or something that you already have enough of it, you don't need it. Probably due to the fact that Athens was named after Athena. That's sort of what the analogy means of bringing owls to Athens, because they already had plenty of owls apparently. There is also a saying that when somebody is drunk and wide-eyed, kind of out of it, you would call them an owl in the ivy bush. And this comes from the association of ivy with the god of debauchery, Bacchus, or Dionysus of wine and drinking. Owls can be found all over the world, and they have been around for over 50 million years. They are birds of the order Strigiformes, with around 200 species. Owls are separated into two families. The true owls are known as Strigidae, and the barn owls are in the family Titanidae. Strix is a genus of owls in the owl family Strigidae, and this genus is named after a screeching owl-like monster from Greek mythology. Barn owls are kind of separate, and I found it funny that before the invention of barns, you had all these different folk names for a barn owl, and one of them was an ivy owl. So I thought, oh, that must be the owl in the ivy bush. The barn owls are the drunk ones. Well, this is me going down the rabbit hole of owl research, okay? This is just a theory, or maybe there's a cognate connection. But a term in Britain for an owl was a hobhoochen, and I want to bring that back too. A hobhoochen is some sort of elf, because a hob means fairy or imp, elf. So this is just another synonym for that. Here we have the owl associated with fairies in a folk name. I'm not sure if I'm mispronouncing hobhoochen. It's obsolete, but maybe it's houchin, kind of like Hutchins. Sorry if I've been butchering your name out there. If there is a houchin or a hoochin, I'd like to hear from you if you know anything about your family crest, or if there's an owl on it or what. A lot of people would think, when they look up a witch bird, you might see something like this species. A folk name for which is a witch. Probably because the long beak and it's raven black, it looks like a kind of a witch nose stereotype. I don't know. That is nicknamed the witch bird. But technically, when it comes to ethnofauna and the study of ethnology, we can see that the owl has more folklore to do with it. So it far surpasses this other witch bird in references and beliefs. The owl is a common symbol in Halloween decorations for a reason, because it is associated with witches and witchcraft. The Hispanic Lacuza, it was the name for owl, and it was also a monster that had a woman's face sometimes, and there's all sorts of beliefs whether or not it was a witch that was reincarnated into an owl. And here we can see an inextricable link between witches and owls, because it would be the perfect familiar for a witch, right? I wish I had one. So why is the witch so often associated with the owl? The owl being sacred among so many pre-Christian cultures, these goddesses had to be denigrated into mere witches that flew through the night. Even though it is a bird that's believed to bring omens, in some cultures, it's really good luck. For instance, within Hinduism, the wife of the god Vishnu is Lakshmi, who is given different devotional titles, and one of them means the one who rides an owl. As the goddess of abundance, wealth, fortune, luck, Lakshmi's owl might symbolize the ability to use the wealth that she offers you wisely. Here in the Burney relief of Mesopotamia, we can see an ancient carving of a goddess with owl companions and the legs of an owl from 1800 BCE. So thousands of years ago, owl goddesses were revered. Hugin is a raven of the god Odin, which means thought, mind. And then Munin, Odin's other raven, is memory. The Habhuchen, when you look up this term for owl, I was like, what does this mean? The Huchen part seems to derive from the pre-5th century Germanic Hug, just like names such as Hughes or Hutchins. All these words are similar in that they refer to mind, spirit, and heart. So it's kind of fascinating that the term for Odin's raven, Hugin, is related to the term Habhuchen for the owl. It comes from the same word. The Gothic word hug, I need to do a whole nother video about the fact that even hugs are heathen, okay? This thing we all do when we're connecting and meshing auras, as I like to call it, we're connecting at heart. That term hug is the same for the mental connection of Hugin, that part of our soul, because the Norse conception of the soul is very complex. Technically, it would make perfect sense for me to hug owls. The Irish and the Scots had their own belief that the owl was a witch. The Irish for owl would be Cailleach Ihe, which is night witch. And in Welsh folklore, in the Mabinogion, there is a tale of Blondwed. Sorry, Welsh is very hard to pronounce, but I'm gonna try. Llw was the son of Erenrod, and she put a curse upon her son. Part of the curse was that he would find no mortal wife. So the wise magicians, Math and Gwydion, decided to fashion him a wife out of flowers. This would be the beautiful maiden Blodwed, which is Welsh for flower face. She ended up falling in love with another man than she was created for. They plotted to kill Llw, and when they attempted this, the magicians went after her other suitor and killed him, but they couldn't bear to kill their flowery creation Blondwed. So they cursed her instead by transforming her into an owl, so that she may never show her face in the light of day again. So Blondwed means flower face, but it is also taken to be an ancient word for an owl. This has always been one of my favorite folk tales because I just think it's a very beautiful story. Regana, the Baltic owl goddess of witchcraft and death, was also later demoted to a mere witch by universalist faiths such as Christianity. So just because this bird has to do with witches doesn't mean it's evil or gonna hurt anybody. In fact, we should hold owls in reverence. Like the Blakiston's fish owl, the largest owl on Earth, is endangered. People are destroying their habitat. I think witches should stick together in conservation and protecting animals that we have become synonymous with, in a sense. They're so mystical and stealth. Like when they fly, it's silent. And kind of what inspired this video. This year, after years of wanting to see an owl, I've actually seen several in the last 6 months or so, and I have to take that as a sign because I've never witnessed that many. Let me know in the comments below if you guys can think of any other ethnic folkways regarding the owl or folk names for the owl. Probably my favorite thing that I found in researching the owl is when somebody is bewitched, they call it owl blasted. I think we need to bring this term back, like instead of saying somebody's cursed, they're owl blasted. You've been owl blasted by that witch, or, you know, these are things I think of, like how lame our language is compared to these rich, obsolete words that we should be using. Blasted is another term for, well, it has multiple meanings like many of these things, but cursed, to have ill luck, basically. It's not a good thing. This comes from the belief that an owl has that power of the witch. Basically, an owl, if it was close by, some cultures would not feel comfortable. They'd think that it is relaying bad messages. But like I said, this could be something that the witch was demonized into, because sending messages and being the bird of wisdom isn't really that bad of a rap for the owl. It is important we bring back our folk names for different plants, and that's why I'm researching. It's taking a while to do a video about what I consider the most heathenish herbs and plants, but it will happen. So stay tuned. Thinking of doing a video about houseplants named after Satan, if anyone's interested. Like how the love in a mist flower was later named the devil in a bush, simply because I think we have a lot to learn from folk names and creatures. Typically, the plants and animals that were the most demonized are the ones that had the highest pagan significance.
I would not be offended if I came into a house and I saw a picture of an owl. Now, if I came into that same house and I saw several pictures of owls and several figurines of owls, I might become very suspicious that this person either was involved in the occult and had some type of influence, or there was an ancestral involvement in witchcraft, and it's showing itself through the image of the owl.
I don't know, this exorcist guy says he wouldn't want to be around owls, but honestly, if I was gonna make some devil music, they would be the most brutal backup singers for a heathen metal band. And we could call it Lilith or something. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, I would totally summon the owl demon Stolas because how adorable. I mean, a giant owl that teaches you the lore of precious gemstones and the meanings of plants and herbs. Even the demon seems to do with witchcraft because it's a demon that teaches you about plants. There are various demons associated with King Solomon, and they had different legions of hell. I noticed that when you look at the old writings about the nature of this entity, it is often called a creature that would shapeshift into a raven. But then you look at the illustrations that are given, it's always an owl. And I thought, that's weird. Why would the raven equate an owl? And it turns out the night raven is sort of a kenning for an owl. And I was able to verify in a centuries-old dictionary that night crow or night raven are terms for any bird that cries at night. Typically it refers to a nightjar or an owl, this type of thing. Then I thought, okay, if a night raven could be an owl, then is this kenning mentioned anywhere in heathen lore? So I looked up night raven in German, and it is Nachtkrab. It turns out this is a demonic spirit used to scare children into going to bed. Sort of like the Yule Cat or Krampus was used to get children to behave. There is even a good night raven that would lull the children to sleep. And I thought, maybe this was an owl, just like the demon Stolas is called a night raven, but it's actually an owl. I'm really curious to learn more if you guys know anything about this. Maybe I'm onto something, maybe not, but let me know what you guys think. Could this night raven, the Nachtkrab, be a giant owl within Norse lore? The owl also appears as a witch within German culture, as we find in the folk tale written down by the Grimm brothers called Jorinda and Joringel. So to sum this up, there was an old castle in the middle of a thick forest. A witch dwelled there that could change herself into an owl or a cat. If a man came within 100 paces of her castle, he would be frozen in place and unable to move. If a woman came near to the castle, she would be changed into a bird by this witch, put in a wicker basket, and the witch would keep all these birds, she had several thousand, within her domain. Jorinda was a fair girl, and she promised to marry Joringel. When he walked too close to the castle, he was frozen in place and unable to stop the witch from transforming Jorinda into a nightingale. When he looked, there was a screech owl with glowing eyes that flew 3 times around the nightingale. The owl flew away into a thicket and came back as a crooked old woman, yellow and lean, with red eyes and a hooked nose. So the owl transformed this girl into a bird. Joringel did not know how to rescue his woman. He had a dream, though, which is a very common heathen concept, that you would dream of the path best taken or have an omen of what you should do. He dreamt that he found a blood red flower with a pearl in it, and this was able to save his love. So he woke up, he found a red flower that had a large drop of dew in the middle, went to the witch's castle and bravely touched the door with the flower, and it opened. The witch was unable to come within 2 paces of him. He could touch the cages of the birds and rescue them from their state. They would turn back into their human form. The old woman tried to sneak out with a particular bird cage, so he figured that would be Jorinda. He quickly chased her, touched the cage, and of course his love is transformed back into her prior self. Then he touches the witch with this flower, and she loses her power to bewitch anybody else. This is a very strange tale, and I'm not sure exactly how to interpret it, but one thing I do notice is that this owl-like witch is able to trap all the other birds and sort of control the domain. The owl is seen as the most powerful bird in the story, and all the other birds are in cages. Owls weren't only associated with witches in heathen lore, but they were also considered ghosts. The great gray owl, which is common in Scandinavia, has been called the Phantom of the North. It was believed in Norway that to hear the cry of the spectral owl, or an eagle owl for that matter, was a sign of ghosts or an ill omen. For this reason, the great gray owl is also called the ghost owl. Likewise, the snowy owl is called the Scandinavian night bird, the tundra ghost, or the white terror of the north. Why are owls associated with ghosts in the heathen lands? I think that it's partially due to the lore of the Dildegast, which means border stone ghost. The gast or ghost part of the word is also a term for an owl, as I just mentioned. This ghost is a troubled soul who wrongfully moved the stones that were used to divide neighboring territories while they were still alive. The spirit could not find peace until it moved the stones back to their rightful place. But every time the Dildegeist tried to lift a stone, it would fall back down, and he would let out an awful shriek. So the Dildegeist of Norway could also take the shape of an owl shrieking on top of the stone, and this would also be thought to be the lost soul. Uppsala, Sweden is the largest heathen cult site in Scandinavia, and right outside Uppsala is a burial field in Valsgard, containing over 90 graves from the Iron Age. A few of these elaborate 6th and 7th century burials have been mentioned in recent news articles due to the discovery that ancient heathens likely used different bird feathers for different shamanistic purposes. It's pretty amazing that now feather specialists can determine what kind of bird an ancient feather in a grave came from. And two of the warriors at Valsgard were buried with feather pillows containing feathers from all sorts of birds, from geese and crows to sparrows, but most surprisingly, the eagle owl. One of the warriors was also buried along with a headless eagle owl in his grave. The general consensus is that what kind of feathers were chosen had a deeper religious and symbolic meaning. This amazing find backs up Norse folk beliefs that certain bird feathers were better suited to enable the soul to be released from the body, and that the type of feathers in the bed of a dying person may have been more important than once thought. Clearly, birds of prey had shamanistic purpose within heathen lore. I can think of a bunch of examples of this, such as the god Odin has 2 ravens, Freya has a falcon coat, Thialzi, the giant, shapeshifts into an eagle. You have swan maidens that can wear swan feathers and turn into a swan. Even in Eric the Red saga, a pillow stuffed with the feathers of domestic hens was placed on a throne in Greenland for a seeress that was expected to visit. The implication of these new finds is that it was no accident they chose a hen's feathers for the seeress, or a crow's feathers for something else. It was all strategic and shamanistic. It wasn't just random filler in the bedding. The full ritualistic purpose of the headless owl in the grave at Valsgard and the variety of feathers offered to the dead, such as the eagle owl, is not entirely known, but at least now we know that there was one. In Vendel 3, a boat burial from the Vendel period, there were both a gyrfalcon and an eagle owl. In addition to these amazing finds, the grave of the Firkat vulva of Denmark included many magical tools. If you don't know, a vulva is a seeress or a witch. So her grave was found to have henbane seeds, probably used for trance, and magical wands, because vulva in fact means staff woman. It makes sense that they had wands, and owl pellets. Don't really know the significance of why these owl parts are chosen to go into the graves, but clearly the owl is associated with spirits and kind of a psychopomp of the other world. These grave goods show that the owl played a significant role in ancient Norse religion. Perhaps as birds of prey, they were seen as fitting tributes to men and women of status. We do know that eagle owls were used for hunting in Scandinavia. The headless owl found in the Valgard 7 ship burial could be a parallel to the story in Saxo where the hero Hadding visits the underworld, and a seeress cuts off the head of a rooster, throws it over the wall, and it can be heard to crow on the other side. This tradition is also attested to in the funerary rites of the Rus, described by Ibn Fadlan. The Stygian owl is named after the course to the other world in Greek mythology, the river Styx. This owl is perhaps the most diabolical in appearance. Stygian owls and other kinds of owls are still killed to this day because people consider them devils or evil spirits, and it affects their population. So although I joke about Stolas and other owl demons, I honestly think this is something that we should rid the world of, these superstitious beliefs that harm animals. I don't care what religion you're from, it's one thing to think that seeing an owl is a bad omen or to have a belief about it. It's a whole nother thing to be killing these animals because you think they're a devil or a demon. That should never happen in today's world, and I'm sorry to report that it is still happening. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to click that notification bell and subscription button. I had a lot of fun researching the owl. It was a hoot. And I thought I would end this with a poem written by John McClure called Owl Blasted. You can trap no sweet from such nimble things. They have goblin feet, they have goblin wings. Chase them everywhere, everywhere they flee. Emptier than air are the world and we. Who has heard the madmen shall remember long all their goblin music and their goblin song. Heathen coalition.